Hi, I'm Dr. Otto von Bismarck, Chief Scientist at Vermont Labs. Today, we're going to be reviewing the Helm Khuraburi. Unsized, the Helm Khuraburi weighs 219 grams, only 7 grams short of a half a pound. I think that Helm should have called the Khuraburi the half-pounder. I'm going to put all the specs on the screen. I don't want to concentrate on specs because other reviewers already have. I do want to say a few words about how the watch wears. The watch does not wear nearly as big as it looks. Because the bezel is wider than the watch head, the effective diameter is 42 millimeters, which is large, but not huge, because the watch has drilled lug holes. You can see them here. The effective lug to lug is probably about 47 or 48 millimeters. That's this distance from here to here, which is pretty reasonable. At 16 millimeters in thickness, the watch definitely wears as thick as it looks. I wish that Helm had made this a 200-meter dive watch instead of a 300-meter dive watch so that the watch would not have been so thick. No one is going to go down to 300 meters with this watch. 200 meters of water resistance is way more than enough. Jody at Just One More Watch, a YouTube channel that I admire, referred to this bracelet as something that the Flintstones would wear. While there's some truth in Jody's statement, I actually found this bracelet to be extremely comfortable when I wore it slightly loose. I have since tightened it up because I have a little bit of arthritis in my wrist, and since the bracelet weighs over 200 grams, it was too heavy to be sloshing around loose on my wrist, even though it was just slightly loose. Even wearing the bracelet slightly tighter than I normally wear bracelets, it's still comfortable. The heavy bracelet, I think, really balances the watch. Aesthetically, I think the thick 4 millimeter bracelet links complement the thick watch head. I have only 6 3/4 inch wrists, and I think that the watch looks substantial and masculine, yet not to the point of overkill. And I will put the watch on now to demonstrate how it looks on my wrist. Okay, so I think that watch looks pretty damn nice, actually. This is a very cool looking watch. And if you'll notice, it conforms to my wrist pretty well. You'll see the nice curved lugs. There's a lot to say about the Khuraburi's clasp. Here are the negative aspects of the clasp. The clasp is a scratch magnet, but I don't think this is a huge deal. Clasps get scratched. It happens. The clasp is thick. It is 9 millimeters thick at its widest point here. The clasp is very wide. Now I just want to talk about the bracelet now. I'll get back to the clasp. The bracelet is 22 millimeters wide. Now it tapers down to 20 here. Here it's 20. Now here at the clasp, it goes back up to 24 millimeters. The clasp is very long. From this point to this point, it is 40.5 millimeters. What these dimensions mean is that you will not be able to comfortably type while wearing this clasp. Now, here are the positive aspects of the clasp. It is very well made. Now, there's plenty of room to get my thumb in here. There's plenty of room here to get my index finger here and snap it open. As you can see, it doesn't explode. It here, and you can see This is, everything here is milled. This is very well made. As you can see here, there's a very narrow gap here between the clasp and the link. This is a pet peeve of mine, and it drives me crazy when watch companies leave too big a gap, because that just leaves room for objects to snag inside of it, and I hate that. There's nothing's going to get snagged in here because there's not enough room here. They did it perfectly. Also, another thing that they did perfectly is that they made this nice and smooth, so it's not going to cut. Well, it's not going to cut, but it's not going to scratch either you or someone else. They couldn't have done it better. And it's the same thing on this side. It's nice and smooth. They really did a superb job with this clasp. The clasp is very secure. I mean, it's a friction clasp, but it ain't going anywhere. It is nice and tight, nice and secure, but it's not so tight that you have to like use a crowbar to pry it open. Helm did a great job with this clasp. I'm very finicky about clasps, and I think that the only issue with this clasp is that it's very big. However, I am extremely happy with this clasp. Not everyone is going to be so happy with it because it might be too big for some people. The head of the watch has all smooth areas, and I really appreciate that because I have been scratched and literally cut by watches that are more expensive than the Khuraburi. As you might be able to hear, the bezel is a little on the tight side, which would be okay if the edges of the bezel's teeth were a little smoother. Because of the lack of smoothness, it is not the most comfortable bezel to turn, and I'll try to show you what I'm talking about. This area here on the side of the tooth and on the other side, just both sides of the teeth could be smoother. And because they're not really that smooth, they're not terrible, but because they're not smooth, it makes for a sort of a friction-y experience turning the bezel. It's a little irritating. I would like to talk about an important topic, which is issues with the bracelet. The bracelet has one big issue, in that the edges of the links are too sharp. So here and here. It is not sharp enough to cut, but it is sharp enough to cause discomfort if scraped against bare skin. I don't like to wear this watch when I'm sitting on my faux leather recliner because I'm afraid that the edges of this watch might either scratch or rip the material. This watch has a major lume problem. This problem probably only affects the Khuraburis that have lume with orange pigment. I adore the orange minute hand in the daytime. I usually have an idea of what the hour is during the day, especially if I'm at work. With a big orange minute hand, I can just look at where the big blob of orange is in order to tell the time. The issue with this beautiful and very useful minute hand is that the orange pigmented lume sucks. At best, I'm getting about 45 minutes of weak lume on the minute hand. I will give you a demonstration of how weak this lume is now. Since my Citizen ProMaster is a lume monster, this will allow you to see the differences between the Helm lume and the Citizen lume. And we'll do the Citizen first. Okay, we just did the indexes. Now we're going to go and do the bezel. And now we'll do the hand. Okay, that should be enough. And we'll turn the lights off. I just waited 2 minutes. I think that you can see that the hour hand is a lot brighter than the minute hand, and that the orange, the 15-minute track is on the bezel is barely noticeable now. The crown is so big and fat that I think it could more appropriately be referred to as a knob. I like the crown. I love the 4 o'clock crown position. I've never had issues with the crown poking into my wrist. The crown has pop, and the action is reasonably good. The only thing that bugs me about the crown is the absence of a crown guard. God, in his infinite wisdom, gave us crown guards. I don't understand why watch manufacturers don't take advantage of them. Helm makes Khuraburis with 10 o'clock crowns, so the crown would be up here. I don't see why right-handed people want crowns at 10 o'clock. This is the position where one is most likely to bang it against an object. I suspect that it's probably a hell of a lot more awkward to use the crown at 10 o'clock as well. The watch uses a NH38 movement, which has worked pretty amazingly well for me. The watch appears to be running fast, about 2 seconds a day. In summary, I love the Khuraburi, but I'm going to need to sell it in order to feed my growing watch addiction. I might in the future buy a Khuraburi with a black dial and all white hands, so I could get proper lume. I also would like to attempt to sand down the edges of the bracelet links in order to make them smooth. I'm not sure if this is possible or how to do it just yet. I think that if this watch had smooth edges on its bracelet, it would be close to perfect.